It's our World Cup debrief with Emily Boyle, and there is plenty to go through today, Emily.
Plenty to go through, and as always, I'm joined by Tando Sabia. Well, Tando, I'll come back to you. I'll come back to you guys in a minute, but let me go over the scores of those four games. As we said, a lot to go through. Group favourites Switzerland were stunned by Qatar, who equalised thanks to an own goal in stoppage time. That ended in a 1-1. Same scoreline in New York for the main event of the evening, Brazil against Morocco. Meanwhile, Scotland made the most of their World Cup return by taking 3 points against Haiti, and another surprise came in the early hours this morning as Australia beat Turkey 2-0.
Yeah, and those are the latest results. Let's go look at that one game in particular, though, Brazil versus Morocco.
Yeah, the one everyone is really talking about. Morocco were looking really impressive, especially in the first half. Vinicius even managed to make it even, but it wasn't a great first performance from Carlo Ancelotti's squad. One Brazilian journalist even called the first half the worst 45 minutes of football since Brazil's 7-1 loss to Germany in the 2014 semi-final. Tando, let's come to you for this take, your take on that game. What did you make of Brazil's performance?
I think Brazil's performance was not as exceptional as might have been expected, but from the journalist's comment, I think this dabbles more into underestimating the African continent and the quality of football that can come from there. And so when you look at the fixture, if you're a Brazilian journalist, you're not really familiar with the Moroccan side, how they've performed in the World Cup, how they've performed in the African Cup of Nations and any other surrounding tournaments, their selection, the kinds of players that they have in their selection. I mean, you have Achraf Hakimi, one of the best defenders in the world right now, 2 times Champions League winner. He's won awards in the CAF awards. And so you come up against an opponent like this, and then you're going to say that for the Brazilians, it's the worst that they've had. No, they had a tough opponent. And I did say yesterday that it was going to be a difficult game, but I expected a lot more goals. But defensively, these two were quite organized. You look at Morocco, they had one of the best defense in the African Cup of Nations last year in 2025. And so when you look at them coming up a side against Brazil, I don't think that Carlo Ancelotti perhaps expected this from the Moroccan side.
What do you think he could take from this game and tweak for the next one, for instance?
Up front. They have a very strong man in Igor Thiago, who is their number 9. But even looking at the Vinicius goal, it was an individual effort. And so that does mean that he was able to redeem the side. You need players like that who have that gravitas, the confidence that even if we're trailing, there's going to be a player who has a big match temperament to then break that little wall, well, not little, but break the wall that the Moroccans or a side at least almost similar would put against. I do think that maybe a substitution bringing in Endrick at some point. Igor Thiago, he's going to be really good in the duels, both aerial and on the ground. Physicality, he's got it. He's got the pace. He's a striker at Brentford. Really, really good. But he did suffer from an ACL injury, so I don't know if this is going to contribute a little bit to his style of play, yes.
Yeah, no, I was just going to say, you were talking about one player in the Moroccan defence, but there was one Moroccan player who stood out in particular, and that was 18-year-old Ayoub Bouadi. He only joined Morocco in May. Before that, he was playing for the French under-21s. Let's have a listen to what his teammate Chadi Riyad had to say.
I don't know, he's 18 and he looks like he's been playing for 20 years. I'm very happy for him. He's a really good guy and very proud. I said to him already congratulations because of his debut. And yeah, very happy to have him as a Moroccan fan.
What a brilliant late signing for Morocco. Do you think he could be Morocco's secret weapon?
Possibly. I mean, in the African Cup of Nations, Brahim Diaz was that for the side which advanced all the way to the finals. Contestable that they might be the African champions. So you do see that these late additions, similar with Brahim Diaz, he was playing more on the Spain side and then he got called up by the Moroccans for the African Cup of Nations, won the Golden Boot for the tournament. So it is these slight additions. But yesterday, if any of the viewers or even you guys recall, I did mention the importance of Mohamed Wabi coming in because he has more relations with the younger side. He has an eye for the younger side, and perhaps his technical team as well have the eyes for how the youth is moving and how they operate. So these young additions, you mentioned that he's 20 years old. There's also Othman Mama, who's been brought up from the youth structures as well. Yacid Zaibiri, also brought in from the under-20 sides, who won the tournament with the coach. So I do think that there's going to be a nice blend, which then speaks to the continuity. Because if we do look at the World Cup, yes, there's an objective to make it as far in the tournament as possible. But they only have few national selections together. And so if we're speaking for continuity, this is where we start seeing these things, the relationship, the handover from the experienced players to the young ones as well. Expose them to football on the greatest stage, give them the time and the platform so that they can start learning the big match temperament. Because what other bigger stage do you need to understand the confidence that you need to have in a game other than the World Cup?
Yeah, and just very quickly to point on the fact that up until now in World Cups, Morocco was always called a dark horse. Now they've won the Under-21 World Cup, they won the AFCON Asterix, and now they're here keeping level with Brazil. Are they going from being dark horses to now should we really be calling them favourites?
Definitely. But the thing is, it's a little bit tricky. It's so early into the tournament. It's too soon to tell. Maybe we can speak once we get into the round of 32, because with the new format of the World Cup, this is practically the group stages of the group stages, So I do think that we can allow for teams to simmer into the tournament, advance a little bit more. There are 48 teams in the tournament. That's a lot. And there's going to be 104 games. You need a whole lot of depth. And I think that in the AFCON, that was where the Moroccans were found wanting. We see the return of midfielder Unahi, who was injured in the African Cup of Nations, and they weren't able to find a worthy enough replacement. Yes, in the final, they made it all the way to the final, but I do think that those kinds of changes and the shortcomings shows you and expose the lack of depth that the Moroccan side had. And this is where the continuity that I was mentioning or alluding to earlier on is super important, that they're going to start having to feed in from the youth structures to kind of extend the depth on the bench. And perhaps those are the qualities that take them a little bit further in the tournament.
Elsewhere in Group C, Scottish and Haitian fans filled the streets of Boston.
Yeah, and Scotland are back at the World Cup, of course, for the first time in 28 years. The Tartan Army have been saying that there is no party without Scotland, and it seems like they were right. Scottish fans brought the vibes before the game, during the game, and especially after the game, which ended in 1-0 scoreline for Scotland, thanks to a deflected goal by Super John McGuinn, as Aston Villa fans know. Not all fans could make it across the Atlantic, though. Some were following from home. Take a look at these scenes here, if we can show you this. This is a fan zone in Glasgow, right as that ball found the back of the net. Absolute scenes there. I have to say, Scottish supporters get my vote so far for the best fans. But we can also take a look at the celebrations that they were taking part in after the game, coming out of the tournament. Let's have a look at some of those reactions.
We're here for one reason. We're going to win the World Cup.
No party like a tartan party, huh, Emily? I mean, wow. Take us through some of the latest World Cup news now.
Yeah, loads of news, of course. Iran will be heading into the United States later today for their game against Scotland in the early hours of Tuesday morning. That kicks off at 3 a.m. Paris time on Tuesday morning. The fixture will be played in Los Angeles, home to the largest Iranian community in the US, against the backdrop, of course, of the US war with Iran. 11 Iranian staff members are still banned from entering the US. Iran will be looking to move on to the knockout stages for the first time. New Zealand, meanwhile, will be hoping for their first ever 3 points in a World Cup. Well, elsewhere in the news, there's one big question. Is the England team cursed? England's preparations have just been non-stop chaos. Basically, the disruption started with a shooting near their training camp in which 9 people were injured. Then their preparations were shaken up by a 6.1 magnitude earthquake. Then Tuchel's squad moved from Florida to Kansas City, during which they were robbed of valuable training time because their boots and footballs were stolen from their van. And now they've been forced to stay inside and take shelter because of a tornado warning. Now, I'm just thinking, am I the only one wondering that they should be the ones coming home instead of a trophy just to stay safe? Do you
Welcome to America.
Welcome to America. A slightly shaky start there, but do you think this could have any influence on their game, or do you think some of these events actually make teams closer?
Perhaps. Yeah, maybe that's the final thing that they need. We look at previous tournaments where we always thought that it was coming home and it actually never did, and it was smooth sailing building up to those things. So perhaps they need a little bit of something to ruffle their feathers so that they can get their head into the game, reunite as a team. But they're a strong force. you look at the selection, you have the likes of Harry Kane, who had an incredible selection or an incredible season in the whole league, in the Champions League, well, in the Bundesliga.
Ballon d'Or
with Bayern.
potential? Question mark?
Definitely one of those. And, just the way he shone with the Bayern Munich selection. Of course, he has a very strong force in the Bayern Munich up front. We had the likes of Diaz. Just the way that they had organized themselves, it made for Harry Kane to have the chance to shine up front. With this particular selection, though, it begs the question of, is this the squad that will help him shine the way that he has to? We've seen previously, it never just goes all the way. They get close enough, but again, like Arsenal, almost just bottling it. So I do think that they have the potential, and perhaps this is what they need to bring them together, unite the squad. And now they have a new coach, Gary Southgate, who was with them for years. It never came home under his tutelage. And so this time around, it's coming. He was with PSG. It's coming
Thomas
to me.
Tuchel.
Thank you, Thomas Tuchel. And so they have a new coach in Thomas Tuchel, who's also quite a solid tactician. And so we have the legacy of PSG coaches who helped build up to this squad. We have Pochettino, who's doing amazing with the United States, and we'll all have eyes on Tuchel to see what he's going to be able to do with this side. Obviously, not just great at PSG, he's done exceptionally well in the European landscape as well. So we are looking forward to see what he's able to do with this side. They have the likes of Kobe Menu, they have Harry Kane, they have Bukayo Saka. All of these players are super experienced, but let's see what happens when they come together.
Okay, let's turn our attention to today's games. How many are on the slate, Emily?
Yeah, 4 more matches coming up. Let's have a look at some of those fixtures now. Firstly, Germany are up against first-timers Curacao in Group E, whilst the Orange Legion descends on Dallas as the Netherlands face Japan. After that, the Elephants of the Ivory Coast will kick off against Ecuador, and finally, Sweden will be up against Tunisia. Well, let's have a closer look at those Group E fixtures together, Tando. As I mentioned, first time is Curacao against fallen champions now Germany, and later the best South American defence, Ecuador, will square up to 2024 African champions Ivory Coast. Curacao, what a story from that country. Their population is 160,000 inhabitants. It's kind of like if the 16th arrondissement of Paris had their own national team playing at the World Cup. Absolutely crazy story.
Much younger, I hope.
Much younger, much more nimble, probably. But Tanda, do you think Curacao could pull off the unimaginable and challenge Germany?
Potentially. But I do think that if we look at their record building up, in the qualifiers, they've gone unbeaten. In the CONCACAF selection, in the qualifiers, 10 matches, 15 goals scored. They have a solid side, but in their region for the Caribbean, as a Caribbean opposition. But when you look at them coming up against a very strong Mannschaft, if you must, and I think that this Germany side has a lot to polish, a lot to correct, because in previous editions of the World Cup, they haven't necessarily performed up to the standards that we've seen them perform as well as. And so I do think that for this one, it's going to be a challenging encounter. Some players to look out for, we have Tahith Chong, who is at Sheffield United, and he's in the midfield department. So that's definitely one of the likes that we would be looking out for, to see how then it happens creatively and him dropping into defense when required. And I do think that we're all looking to see what Coach Dick Advocaat, who's the head coach, an experienced man at that.
He's already been at the quarterfinals with the Netherlands.
Yeah, there we go. And so when you have a coach who's that experienced coming in, the Netherlands is not just any nation. This is the birth nation of total football. And we'll speak about Koeman when we speak about the Netherlands later on. And I do feel like there's some kind of renaissance. I've been reading Johan Cruyff's biography about total football, and we are seeing the very same names he mentions in those books in this current dispensation of football. You have the likes of Koeman. We have even Pep Guardiola, who's leaving Manchester City. Eyes open to see where he's going to go after that, who was a mentee of Johan Cruyff. And so we do see these kinds of things with Dutch football and total football coming into the fray. So let's see if he's going to be using any of those things. And so like I was saying with the likes of, it's coming back, Chong in midfield, that when it's time to go up front, then a player must attack. And when it's time to defend, a player must defend as well. So yeah, perhaps they have the potential to produce those kinds of things. You have the brothers in the likes of Leandro, the Bakuna brothers. But let me not get carried away. I have plenty to say about Curacao, about Germany, about Netherlands, but early stages in the tournament.
Well, you were touching on Dutch football, so let's go to Dutch football and Group F. Two more fixtures from Group F. There, Netherlands against Japan is one of the big games of this group stage. What do we think? Netherlands, Japan could be quite a close game.
Japanese side are quite technical, and I think when we look at the level of discipline that they have in the way that they organize themselves, that might be a shortcoming, and that has been the shortcoming that they've had throughout the previous World Cups and any other tournament as well. They're very technical, but when it comes to situations where they need to be creative and work outside of that organization and outside of discipline, I think that's where they fall short. And so when you're coming up against an opposition like the Netherlands, captain Virgil van Dijk, possibly his final World Cup, so obviously he's coming in and it's all to give. The days at Liverpool, the glory days are done, and so this is the final thing that he has to prove himself. They have a really strong side. The Netherlands, their best World Cup result being in 1974, under Johan Cruyff as well, but never ever seeming to win it. 1978, again, runners-up. 2010 in South Africa, never won it. Lost against Spain. We all remember that final. They had a really good run. But I do think that they have the potential to bring some really good quality football against the Japanese side. In this one, I do think that the Dutch are going to make it very difficult for Japan.
Yeah, and very briefly before we hand back to you, Will, what do you think about the Sweden-Tunisia game? What's your quick-fire prediction on that one?
Sweden also has a strong side. They have some very qualified players, a couple who are playing in Europe, in European leagues and outside and domestically. So we do see that that's a cocktail that a lot of these sides have. But Tunisia has also been on the come up. We saw in the most recent African Cup of Nations, that's when they started performing a lot better. And so I do think that when we make these comparisons, these are two sides that don't always meet. And so in the, I'm missing the expression, but when they face each other, they're head-to-head. There we go, head-to-head encounters. They don't have that many for us to then have a track record of how these two could fare off. Mm-hmm. But I do think that with the quality that Tunisia has shown in most recent times, perhaps not to cause a major upset, but just enough to make it difficult for the Swedish.
So Netherlands-Japan score on the boards.
Ooh, tricky. I do think that the Dutch are going to take this one. Yesterday I was really good with the equality in Switzerland, yes, and I was so happy when they scored that in the dying minutes when they equalized. I knew it. I saw it coming. I said they're going to equalize. And also I just actually have kudos to say to the Qatari side because they stayed in that game for the whole duration. And I do think that a lot of sides need to have that, and it's the quality and depth that is required of many sides, especially the underdogs. But coming back to the prediction for the Netherlands, I do think that they can win 1-0.
Yeah. Kudos to Qatar, I say through gritted teeth.
Well, I say kudos to both of you. You'll be back tomorrow for doing more debrief?
Yeah, back for more.
Okay, great. Tando, Emily, thank you very much. Time now for a quick break, and then more news and Tech 24 also coming up.